This is the garden party, and we want a garden party with you. We'll talk about the plants we grow and some things you might not know. The garden party. Like and subscribe. Go ahead and Phil, start out.
What up, everyone? It's Phil from Phil's Figs, your favorite fig dad, plant parent and regular parent, back on the podcast, ready to talk about propagating in cold weather.
Yeah, what Phil said. Vikram, Go ahead, dude.
Hey, I'm Vikram. I'm the plant prof. I am a plant prof up in Lubbock, Texas. And I am just trying to figure out where I can hide for the next 3 to 5 days from the cold. That's my plan.
Dude, it's going to get much colder in Lubbock than it is where I'm at. So I would probably just curl up in some blankets and make like a human burrito and just go maybe take about 3 or 4 Benadryls and just hibernate for like 3 or 4 days. Like that would be my goal. I don't recommend that. I'm not a doctor. Vikram is a doctor though.
Not that kind. I can't. I'll tell you what's wrong with your plants. Don't call me in a medical emergency.
Yes.
If anyone asks that on a plane ever, is there a doctor? I'm going to sit quietly and look out the window. That's my goal.
Yeah. Yes, I am. And no, I can't help you.
I can't.
Perfect. And we have authors in the house tonight. So Vikram's book right here is Plants to the Rescue. You can get it on Amazon. And we have another author on the podcast tonight, Miss Resh Gala. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Resh.
Can you guys hear me? Okay.
Well, yeah.
So my name is Resh. My Instagram handle is @Resh Gala. And I'm proud to say I'm an author. I have a book that just came out. It's called Vegetable Gardening Made Easy. And I also love to design and install edible organic gardens. And yay, thanks, Phil. Thank you.
You got it. Yeah, I'm stoked.
Thank you. And yes, I know we have a freeze coming up. Everything is so cold. But the good news is that I love experimenting in the garden. And even more so, I love pushing the limits of what's possible to grow outside in the garden, even in the cold. So this is going to be an exciting, chat today. So I'm looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, and you and Phil are the most northern of us because Phil's in North Carolina and you are in New Jersey. So
correct.
Y'all will probably be, probably more expertise on what it's like for people who actually normally get this colder weather. Us here in Texas, we are just dumbfounded by what is about to happen to us. It is. This is not going to be a fun couple of days. Let's just put it that way.
We've got you covered, right?
Speaking of Texas,
yeah, we got you covered. Technically, I'm still in 8B. I got palm trees in my backyard, but I grew up in the Northeast. So, but we're gonna get cold. Don't worry, I got you covered.
You're in the banana belt. You'll be all right. Rosanne, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Thanks. Hey guys, I'm Rosanne Green. I am in Northeast Texas. I am Greenish Texas on Instagram. And I work full-time in finance and have 2 little boys that are keeping me busy and costing me a lot of money in braces this year. But I post on Instagram a lot about having a organic backyard garden. And most of my followers are generally moms that are trying to figure out how to do that same thing too. A lot of women my age didn't grow up seeing their parents have a garden, and now they want to do it. So they're going to Instagram as their, new Google to find out how to grow heirloom tomatoes. So that's what I do. Let's talk about that.
Nice. Instagram, not TikTok. Don't go to TikTok for knowledge. Stay off of TikTok when you're looking for knowledge. I met Rosanne because we're both in an issue of Texas Gardener magazine. This is my issue, and Rosanne's got her issue. And we will both be speaking at the Texas Tomato Lovers Conference this weekend. So I'm actually get to meet someone in person for once during one of these. So
I look forward.
Very excited about that.
Me too.
Yep, and I'm doing my talk on container tomatoes. What is your talk on?
My talk is about how to have a garden with a family, how to fit it all in.
There you go.
Oh,
There you go. There you
I
go.
love that.
That's awesome. Absolutely. I think we've mentioned it many times on this podcast to how gardening is so much more easy, so much easier, and so much more fun when you get the whole family involved, and that's definitely a good thing to do.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of big families and growing a lot of things, we got Michael Fiore down here at the bottom. Go ahead and introduce yourself, Michael Smith's Garden Town Fiore.
Yep, that's me. So I've got 3 kids of my own and a wife, and she hasn't left me yet, so that's always good. We are greenhouse growers up in Wichita Falls, Texas, or down in Wichita Falls, Texas, depending on where you are. We're at the northernmost point of Texas, though, right on the border of Oklahoma, and we've got 4 acres of greenhouses, and we have some outdoor growing space and a big retail area at our garden center. So we're in full spring mode right now. We got in somewhere around 20,000 young plants just yesterday that we are going to be planting this week. So we're rocking and rolling because we have to be 2 to 3 months ahead of everybody else because we grow the plants, and so we have to get them ready to sell during spring. And I'm excited because we're going to be starting a bunch of classes also this spring. So you guys are teaching about tomatoes. I'll be doing some vegetable gardening classes here locally as well, and we're just posting all of those coming up here soon. I think we put our schedule out today on Facebook and on our website. So excited
it's
to be.
It's y'all's 75th anniversary, right?
75 years in business, and so we're doing lots of events and just fun happenings. It's been the same family for 75 years, so it started by my great-grandfather, and so glad to be here, glad to see you guys again, and excited for spring, but we got to get through this cold weather first.
Yeah, I was really excited last episode because we were talking about starting our spring garden, starting seeds, and then I look like 2 days later in the future, and it's like, oh, okay. Yes, you can still start your spring vegetables. Just keep them inside. And this whole podcast this week was going to be about continuing the spring garden until I saw I guess are they calling it the Arctic Blast? Is that what they're calling it now?
Polar
That's
vortex.
what I've seen.
There you go.
Is there like a categorization or which adjective or they use what it is, Arctic blast, polar vortex? Is there like a legit classification, or is that just what they call it?
I think
You're gonna
Arctic
have to ask Jim
Blast is a
Cantori.
Powerade flavor.
Yeah, Arctic blast is a Powerade.
It's
That's
Powerade.
The name is Frost.
Beyond that, I don't know.
Polar vortex is coming out soon.
yeah.
Gatorade.
Yeah. No, I always called it. What flavor is that? It's blue. Blue's the flavor.
Blue. Yeah.
So gross.
So I figured this episode we'd probably go around and talk about what we're doing in the garden to kind of keep our existing plants safe. And I guess we'll probably start with we'll go from the smaller scale to the biggest scale. Because we got Vikram and Michael who kind of cheated. They got giant greenhouses and propane heaters and all that stuff. So they're gonna have a lot of expertise, but they're also cheating. So we'll start with Phil. Phil's the Backyard Fig Nursery. What are you doing to keep your existing stuff alive? Oh, by the way, we are live on Facebook. If you're watching right now, drop us a comment down below and ask a question to the panel or anything like that, and I'll bring it up to everybody. So start with you, Phil. What are you doing, dude?
So I'll give you my setup. I have a Harbor Freight 8 by 10 by 10 greenhouse. And I take that back. It's 10 by 10 by 12. And because I like the head space, I like the length, I can get in, move around. And I have tried many different strategies to passively heat my greenhouse, whether it is countersinking the greenhouse itself, which is that is more of a structural thing, but it also gives me some kind of geothermal baseline heat. That's not I'm not pulling heat out the bottom of the greenhouse. And then I have my rain barrel in there. Geothermal?
When you say countersink your
Radiant, sorry, I
greenhouse,
missed
like
that.
you dug into the ground, you dug it in.
I dug into the ground 3 inches, and then I backfilled it with 1/2-inch granite,
Okay.
and then that gravel kind of sustains it in place. And so if there's a windstorm and I close everything up, like that crazy storm that came through, I just ratchet strap down the vents to make sure they don't flip up, because the second airflow gets in is when I start to lose panels. Not to have that tangential flight, but I try to passively heat it. So I'm actually going to Lowe's this week, and I am going to pick out some of the insulation board, and I'm going to try to like wrap probably the first 5 feet along 3/4 of it, where I'm not getting a lot of solar energy coming in, and I'm going to try to just absorb as much solar energy as I can, and then radiate it out when I'm not getting that sunlight. And so whatever capturing methods I can do, including the rain barrel I have in there, I'm going to utilize. And then I also have a space heater that's the Palma BioGreen, and it's clear for like 200 square feet, and that's exactly what my greenhouse is. So that's my strategy. If not, I do have a 2-car garage, and I could do a good fig shuffle back in there for a few days.
You see mine.
Say thank you to my wife, and then move it all back out when we're clear for takeoff again.
Yeah, the passive is a good idea. It's like as an accessory, but really you're gonna have to be cranking on that heater. I mean, it's I think the rocks will probably work as passive. I've even heard people stacking pavers in their greenhouse, because if it gets warm during the day, the pavers will absorb some heat. But the only I don't want people to get the wrong impression that you can, if it's 20 degrees outside, you can warm your entire greenhouse with a black.
No. I'm trying to limit the quantity of energy I need to pay for.
You're supplementing it.
I'm supplementing, yes. Because then there's other strategies you can use, like incandescent light bulbs. Because I'm talking about heating my greenhouse, but I'm trying just I have also heat mats for all my fig cuttings that I can regulate temperature and keep them warm, because you want to stimulate root growth as well. But it's all just supplemental stuff to try to keep the greenhouse comfortable to get through something before it warms back up again.
Right. And most people are not trying to heat their greenhouse to like 60, 70 degrees. We're just trying to keep our greenhouse above freezing. You know, just enough to keep so like out in my greenhouse, I'm not going to put my desert roses out in the greenhouse, because desert roses and plumerias can get hit really hard by like 40-degree weather, 50-degree weather. Even like low 50s can affect them. So if you have something very sensitive like that, you're better off keeping it. The best way to keep your plant alive is to keep it inside. That is like the only 100% way to keep your plant alive.
As long as you're watering it. But the other thing too is like you gotta, if you own a greenhouse, like and you have a small operation, is understanding how your temperature fluctuates in your greenhouse. So I know when it gets cold without sunlight, I have a 15-degree differential that I'm averaging from the ambient outside temperature to the inside. And so I can calculate, my lows tonight, this, like say it's going to be 30, it's going to be 45 in the greenhouse. Do I need to add an extra heater or add some other sort of supplemental passive heating thing to get through the night? Because in the daytime, I can get a 30 to 40-degree differential with the sunlight.
Oh, yeah.
So, Phil, how low is your temperature going to get during this, upcoming weather
When everyone's talking
challenge?
about it, my low is 23. So I'm going to be pushing it, which I do have a backup space heater that I don't want to cause a fire. I think it's like just
it's
like a normal space heater.
In my house.
What's the temperature that the figs like to be in? What's the temperature that the figs like to be?
Figs can freeze when they're dormant too, so they can handle like high 20s and 30s. When I'm propagating, I try not to go below 50. I do not like the anything below 50. I'm going to start losing any sort of energy that the figs are trying to put out to grow.
Makes sense.
Any kind of propagation, I treat them like seedlings, like plant starts.
100%.
You don't want to have them get their interrupted growth with the cold weather, because usually you lose a lot when it comes to that. But yeah, no, I'm excited. That's messed up, dude. It's getting colder where I'm at, and I'm like much further south than you. That's so messed up. It's going to get 17 on Wednesday, so that's crazy.
And I'm like literally like on the coast. Like I got a boat ramp in my neighborhood on the intercoastal waterway, so I do get some maritime climate stuff.
Yeah, and I will say for all the people who have been asking me, like on Instagram, on Facebook, where'd you get your greenhouse? Where can I get a greenhouse? If you absolutely need to buy a greenhouse, buy one now. But if you can wait till spring or summer, that's when you buy your greenhouses. Don't buy them right now. Don't. They can jack it up just like the freeze cloth. They can charge whatever they want right now for that freeze cloth. Not to be mean if y'all are selling freeze cloth at your nursery right now, Michael, but people can, when you have the supply, you can charge whatever you want, so.
We don't gouge prices on it.
I wouldn't think you would, Michael. Of course not. I'm saying people could, people could. Well, my buddy went to Lowe's today and they were looking for the faucet covers and the noodles and they were sold out. And I'm like, how do you not just already have that? Like that should be like one of the first things you buy when you buy a house. Like, hey, it's going to freeze at one point. Let's either get the freeze miser or one of these covers or figure it out. But that's a little off topic. We'll get into that stuff later on. We're going to go ahead and move over to Miss Rosanne over here in Northeast Texas and tell us what are you doing to keep your, because you've already got seed started already, right?
I don't actually. I wanted to this week, but I didn't start any this week. So
Smart.
Our low forecast through all of this is going to be 11 on Monday. So it's going to be pretty touch and go there for a while. But the way that I've prepared is I have an all in-ground garden, no greenhouse. I have a insulated garage and with plant lights in our garage. So like 6,000 Kelvin lights in the garage. So I can put a lot in there and protect it. So all my cactus, all my succulents, agave, like anything that's in a pot is in the garage. Basic. In the garden, what I try to do is really prioritize the most sensitive things. Like this year, I'm doing a lot more cut flowers from seed, cool flowers that I haven't ever grown before. Really don't know how sensitive they're going to be. Like I have 14 different types of flowers out there. That's a lot for me.
That's
and
awesome.
So I, and that's been a lot of work. So I really hope I don't lose them all. But those have, what I'm doing with those today and tomorrow is putting shredded leaves like just over them to cover them completely. And then I use my tomato cages are 2 parts. And so I take 1/2 and turn it down and put over the beds and frost cloth over that. And then probably just a cotton bed sheet over that. So really 3 layers. If I can, because I don't have enough frost cloth to cover the whole thing, but anything that's sensitive like that, that's what I'm doing. There's a lot that I'm not going to cover. I'll probably put just leaves, shredded leaves over my garlic and my onions, and maybe some of my Asian greens, my leeks, like that. I'm not going to worry about that. And then I have a lot of cover crops too. Like I'm growing 5 types of cover crops right now, and I'm not going to do anything with those. If they die off, that's fine. They'll just improve the soil. But that's what I've been trying to do is just really prioritize with the most sensitive, make sure I get a cover crop on it. And this year, what I'm doing that I didn't do in whatever, like that was like 2 years ago, and we had an awful ice storm. I didn't cover my hydrangeas. And like I haven't had flowers. So I am going to protect my hydrangeas in my landscape, which I've never done before. And I do have a bay leaf bush in my landscape that I really hope doesn't die either, but I probably covered that. So I'm paying more attention to my landscape this year than I ever have before.
Well, I've seen a lot of people really focus on natives, like the people who lost a ton of their landscaping and like the freeze 2 years ago. They're switching it up and they're going to more native, cold hardy plants like your Turk's cat and stuff like that. But I told people on a post earlier this week, I was like, if you got something in the ground and you're going to be upset if you lose it, take a cutting now. If it's that hibiscuses, because I'm here to tell you right now, if it is 11 degrees outside, it doesn't matter if you put a tarp and you put a comforter, and it's going to act like a radiator, and it's going to die back some. You're going to lose some growth off of it. Your only way to like have a chance of really saving it, if you're not able to bring it in, is take some cuttings and start some propagation.
I will say I had a good win last year. We had an Arctic blast here, and I took the Millennial Gardener's advice, and I wrapped my Satsuma orange tree in incandescent bulbs.
I saw that.
And it just it works. It's just enough. You look at the temperature, it'll be like 33 or 34.
Yeah.
But it's better than 17, right? So like,
right.
It's just enough to keep it from dying off. And sometimes you don't need to have 50. Sometimes you just need 30s. But
I will say too, like, I think it's important to be proactive when we all know that the temps can get this low, right? I'm growing a lot of mosh lettuce this year because it's the most cold tolerant lettuce around. Like spinach is going to last through a lot. I plant a ton of garlic and onions because they can handle it.
Yeah.
So I don't think that most gardeners realize how cold tolerant some of these greens and winter vegetables can actually get. I don't know if you guys follow her, but like the Dallas Garden School, she puts out an email every year of what temperature every vegetable can get down to, and it's just a good guideline. It's really good.
Yeah,
helpful.
Well, that's awesome. Yeah, there's even like when you get into garlic, there's your soft neck and hard neck, and your hard neck's going to be more cold hardy, right?
Yeah.
The hard neck. So if you know you're going to get a colder year that year, you might want to try the hard neck, even though the hard neck doesn't do as well here in Texas from what I've seen. But quick question while we're on that topic, Michael. Hey, I got a Hong Kong orchid, and I'm told that's a cold hardy tree, and it only blooms when it's cold outside. But it's really pretty. It hasn't bloomed yet, and I don't know if I want to chance it leaving it out.
I am not familiar with the Hong Kong orchid.
Yeah, it's also called like the purple orchid tree. They said it is cold tolerant. It makes this purple. I'll send a picture to y'all later on. The leaves are like little hearts, and the bees, the leafcutter bees, always go after them, and they start blooming when it's cold. But I'm scared that it's going to get too cold and I'm going to lose it. So I don't know. I'll ask you. I'll figure it out afterwards. But that was off topic. I'm sorry.
We don't do those up here. I'm sorry. They would probably die up here. So I'm looking at it now, but
it's invasive in Florida, from what I know.
Yeah, zone 9.
Yeah, I'm not going to chance it. I'm going to bring it. That's why I have everything in a container. Even before I had a greenhouse, I would fill my entire garage up with plants. You know, that the reason I got a greenhouse is because I couldn't fit any more in my garage. It's insulated. My water heater is in the garage, so even if I lose electricity, it's gas powered. So the water heater actually kind of heats my garage a little bit, which is kind of nice. But it's definitely a good way. But if I posted the other day, I was like, if you're gonna put your plants in the garage, keep them away from the door. Keep them away from the door because that's gonna be the coldest spot.
The draft. Yeah.
And especially if you have a gap between the door and the concrete, lay out a comforter or a blanket. I always keep all my old comforters because even in the garage, if it gets down to like 19 degrees, I'll throw a comforter over the top of some of the plants as well. So, let's see, Michael Fiore. We're going to ask you this question. This is from Chris Hernandez. He says, any tips for rose bushes during this frost? Any special care you should take with rose bushes?
Most rose bushes are going to be fine. Yeah. It depends on where this person is. So generally, the reason why we don't cut back our roses in the fall is because by pruning them back, it's going to stimulate new growth. New growth is going to be susceptible to freeze damage. And so that's why we recommend don't cut your roses back, at least most roses, until, late winter. So sometime for our area, that's Valentine's Day or after is when you want to cut the roses back. And so if go out and look at your rose bushes, they don't have tender new growth sticking out on them. Most likely they're going to be fine. If you want to throw some frost cloth over them, you can, but you're probably sacrificing that frost cloth because once it gets into the thorns, it's gonna rip to shreds. So I don't ever mess with my roses, and I only have seen damage on the roses where we live once, and that was during the Snowmageddon in February of 21. I did see some roses get damaged then, but once again, that was February, so a lot of those roses were actually starting to wake up, and that's why we saw so much damage on plants during that freeze. I mean, including oak trees and stuff, is we had warm weather and they were starting to get ready to start budding out, and some buds were swelling and new growth was starting to happen, and then we had the worst winter storm ever, or one of them, and it caused a lot of damage. But as long as they're properly hardened off, you should be fine.
So does that count? So I know like roses are cold hardy, certain plants are cold hardy. Does it make a difference if they're in containers rather than in the ground?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
I always tell people it's a 20 to 30 degree difference from a container plant to a plant that's in the ground. So a plant, a perennial that you have that in the garden would be just fine. That perennial may die if it's in a container, because the roots are so much more exposed to cold when they're in a container, or a raised bed for that matter, but containers and pots especially. So any small containers and pots, if you can bring those indoors, that is going to be tremendously beneficial. Or if not, you can cover with a frost cloth all the way down over the entire container, all the way secure it to the ground, and try to keep those roots a little bit warmer.
It's so interesting, Michael, what you're talking about. And I think, Phil, you mentioned that as well about geothermal, heat and energy, and about protecting your plants. The temperatures as we go, lower into the earth, into the soil, I guess it's warmer. And many years ago, I was visiting New Zealand, and it was really fascinating. Went to this geothermal village over there, of the Maori tribe. And it was so fascinating to see that they would actually cook their food. They created like ovens, so to speak, but not actual ovens. It wasn't electricity or anything. It was this Maori tribe, and they were living there. And they would basically put corn, for example, all the way inside, low down into the earth, and it would just cook on its own. Their food, that's how they did it. And so there is something to say about, what you were saying, containers and in ground, and the temperatures are warmer as you go, further down into the soil. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So and your roots are going to be more protected in the ground for sure.
Totally.
So that's why even some things that would be more cold tolerant that aren't in the ground, I'll bring them into the garage or bring them into the greenhouse. It's just
totally.
that especially with the wind chill. I mean, we're looking at 30, 40 mile an hour winds. That brings the wind chill down. And that cold air running around the pot is just going to act like a radiator almost, and it's, I don't know if that's the right term, Vikram. You look at me like you got something to say, Vikram.
No, you're right on. You're
Well,
right on.
This is all spot on. Like in New England, and a lot of like the old like fig growers that came over, they all would dig holes and they would bury a lot of the fig tree underground. They'd cover it with tarps and shrubs and grass, and then every spring it was like this ceremonial thing that you pull. Like I know a guy that did this up in Boston, and he had a giant fig tree, right? But they dug up the tree every year, and that was the seasonal ritual.
So cool.
So yeah.
Wow.
Another good strategy, like when we're talking about hydrangeas for Rosanne, that I've seen people do to protect them, is they will make a wire cage around their hydrangeas and then just fill it with leaves, and you can pile those leaves up. Yeah,
that's a good idea.
There you go.
That's a good idea.
Yeah. I've seen people do bananas like that. They save their bananas. They'll build a cage around them with like cattle panels and fill it with straw. Yeah. And it acts kind of like insulation. And
awesome.
I don't care if my banana dies. I don't care.
It's a pseudo-stem anyway, right? It's a pseudo-stem. It's all coming up from the base.
What did I say about using big words, Phil? Jeez, man.
I like it, Phil.
I
think use more big words.
I knew I was right because I saw Vikram nod. He was like, "Yeah, he's spot on." I was like, "Yeah."
I am the least educated person on this podcast. Okay, so explain what pseudo-stem means right now.
Me or Vikram?
Either Vikram hasn't talked yet. Talk to Vikram.
So bananas are they're not like a tree, right? They're a big like herbaceous plant. So they have leaves that kind of come out and compact around each other. If you think of like a stalk of corn, how it's not a real stem, it's like leaves compressed. Bananas grow in a similar way. So they can get big. I mean, it doesn't really limit the height of the plant, but it's not like a real stem. It's compressed leaves.
Oh, okay.
There's no
So
wood.
that's
Yeah, there's no wood.
and
My
and,
other fun fact about bananas is they only produce a bunch of bananas one time on that pseudostem, and then you have to cut it down. So I was
Yeah.
mind blown whenever I was in Costa Rica the first time, and I saw them harvesting plantains and bananas, and they were just chopping the trees down, and I was like, "Why can't you just cut that thing off?" And they told me that no, it will not produce again. And then come to find out that's true. So that's why they're always making pups, is because once the main stem fruits, and then it will not make another bunch of bananas on it. So the babies come up and take its place.
Wow, that's so interesting. I grew up in India, and so we had banana trees in our backyard and never really thought of it. Like, I really, all this time, I didn't even realize that we had a banana tree, but I know we did. We had papaya trees and banana trees in India. But it's
Man.
fascinating. But in India, a lot of people culturally, they eat food out of, the banana leaf. So it's sustainable way, instead of using disposable plates or dishes that you need to wash, they actually serve food, especially at weddings, on banana leaves. Just a fun fact. Yeah.
Oh, cool.
I love it.
that's really cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess people sometimes don't know that like with bananas, everything it's all alive underground. Like if a freeze comes in and kills every single banana, the rhizome, right?
Mhm.
Right, is down there. Still checking. Is down below, and it works out the same way as bamboo, right? It just spreads and grows up, and then, yep. So can't kill a banana. If you put it in the ground, you'll always have bananas. Good luck with that.
I bet I could kill a banana. I
Dude.
bet Lubbock, Texas could kill a banana.
Absolutely. I agree.
In your hopes and dreams.
Banana's
whatever.
a trigger word for you, Vikram, based on.
A little bit. Like my
Dude.
blood pressure went up when y'all started talking about bananas.
Oh my god! Have there been any 5-minute craft videos about protecting your plants from the freeze with like banana peels and toothpaste?
You know, actually that's funny. I should look and see. I bet there's got to be at least one, and
Yeah.
it'll be alarming and terrible for everyone.
It's like,
You
yeah.
guys are awesome.
Oh
Those
my
are so
god,
good.
dude.
I roasted one the other day, one of those 5-minute craft videos on my page. It was a lot of fun. They're using more CGI nowadays. They used to at least fabricate these cool what do you call that? Props and stuff. And now they're just doing it CGI. They're getting lazy.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
You got some money.
Yeah, it used to be like Russian claymation, and now it's like going full DreamWorks. It's so fun to watch. Someone was asking, how do I don't know if I understand this question. They said, how do bananas grow with everything around the stalks, as in sunlight? I don't know what that means. I guess they're wondering, how does it grow like out of the ground? I'll clarify on that question, and I'll ask it again. Resh, so you do like the landscaping and the edible landscaping. What are you doing right now up there in New Jersey to help people prepare their landscapes for, which is y'all are already cold. I mean, but you're about to get a lot colder.
Exactly. So we anyway, get a frost around about October. Mid-October is when we experience our first frost. So we're pretty ready for this. I'm pretty ready. My clients and people who I know here, we're pretty ready for a deep freeze. What I tend to do, and I don't know if you've seen this picture in my book of me in my garden right here. This is sort of how I start by covering it up. I install hoops in my garden, and I have like raised beds, so I completely grow everything outdoors in the fall and in the winter, and pretty much double our growing season. So right now, outside in my garden in New Jersey, with low temperatures of 22 degrees Fahrenheit, I'm growing lettuce, arugula, cilantro, parsley, kale, mustards, bok choy, And what else? Probably a couple of more things. Definitely a few herbs as well, but the herbs are looking a little bit sad. They're not covered because mint, rosemary, those are pretty hardy, and they can, grow back again in spring despite the cold. So I have all of this growing outside my whole salad garden, and I can go there. It's all undercover. And so what I do is I install hoops and I cover them with something called 6 mil clear farm grade plastic.
Yeah,
And
6 mil.
so the research that I've done, I've been doing, and I've been following this practice for the last many years. So it allows me to extend my growing season. And by using this clear plastic, the clear plastic allows the sunlight to filter in. So I don't have a greenhouse. I don't have any, fancy setup at all. And the sunlight is able to filter in, and the plants can continue to photosynthesize a little bit. However, as the temperatures get cold, I think one of the myths that people think about fall and winter gardening, edible gardening, is that they think that if they plant a garden, that it's going to continue to grow. But actually what happens is that the plant growth slows down and actually sometimes even stops during these colder months because of the lower temperatures, the cold temperatures, as well as the fewer hours of sunlight that we have. So whatever it is, I think a good strategy, and I think most of us tend to experience a freeze, or if you live in an area like I do in the Northeast, where you want to extend your growing season, a good strategy is to plant your garden in late summer so that you can enjoy the harvest in winter, like in January. Like I'm growing lettuce, arugula, kale, etc. So that is a good strategy. Number one is to plan in advance. This is, for your 2024 gardens, if you're planning that, and I hope you do. And then the second thing is, of course, is to be prepared and have an arsenal of items around you. Like I know some of you are having your frost cloths, and I have mine right here. Just showing you this. This is like, a frost blanket, a frost cloth. So you can see it's not completely opaque, but it will protect your plants, and you can always, fold it up and then cover your plants with that if you need to. And then you can also invest in something like clips, snap clamps. And let me show you. I have some right here. I'm just going to grab them.
Yeah. And so whenever you're putting a frost cloth on or a 6 mil, like any kind of plastic, you don't want anything touching the plastic. You don't want, you want to be really, really sure about that. Go ahead,
Yes,
the clips.
exactly. So you don't want the plastic to be touching the plants. So that's why you install the hoops. And if you don't have a hoop bender and you can't bend your electric conduit metal pipes, 10-foot long pipes that you get at Home Depot and any hardware store, if you can't bend them into hoops, then just get a PVC pipe, which is about 1/2 inch thick. And you pretty much get a standard size of 10-foot long, for example, and bend those, and secure them and push them into your raised beds if you have those. If it's in ground, then I highly suggest putting in some rebar and then, putting your PVC hoops over them, because that'll just give them more structural integrity. At the end of the day, you don't want your cold weather contraption that you have flying away in the wind. So what I do is anytime I have my farm grade plastic over my plants and the hoops, I use these snap clamps. So if my pipes, PVC pipes, or my hoops are about 1/2 inch thick, my snap clamps would be 1/2 inch thick. And you get these on Amazon and everywhere. So you can just secure your plastic, or be it your frost blanket, whatever you're using, you're securing it on top so it doesn't fly away in the wind. Because there's nothing worse than it's not just the snow, but it's the cold wind that can get to the plants and dry out the soil and just create havoc.
Yeah.
So that's a couple of things. Yeah.
I think the coolest thing I've seen is people, they'll make those cattle panel arch trellises in the spring and summer for the cucumbers and stuff. We just lost Rosanne. But Rosanne. And then, so they'll have the trellis in the spring and summer, and then they'll turn it into a greenhouse in the wintertime. You just throw the plastic on top, and then in the spring, you take it right back off, and you got a trellis ready to go.
So, one of the challenges of doing that, I've seen some people do that. The challenge with covering your trellis all the way is that it's pretty high up, right? The height is quite significant. It's usually over 5-6 feet tall. And so then you have a lot more space over there, which you have to technically heat up, right? So when you have these hoops, which are just a few, maybe, 12 to 24 inches, like 1 to 2 feet above your plants, you don't have to heat up that much space. And the second strategy that I also use is I do a lot of intensive planting. I plant more intensively actually in fall than I do in spring, because you want the plants huddled close together, sort of like penguins in Antarctica, that they huddle close together to keep each other warm. And it's true, they do transpire and they do keep each other warm in winter. So plant intensively when you think that you're growing in an area that experiences a frost, that experiences a freeze, and experiences a snow like we do, So a lot of these strategies actually work. And the other thing is, I also read many years ago that by covering your plants, for example, with something like 6 mil farm grade plastic, by just adding that one layer of cover, it creates a greenhouse effect inside your which actually increases your growing zone by 1 to 1.5 zones. So if I'm in a 6B, my plants outside are going to feel like they're in a zone 7B or even a zone 8 in winter, which is amazing. And the other thing is also, you don't really have to. I never water my winter garden, which sounds like shocking. Like people are like, what? How do your plants survive? And I actually never water it, because the plastic and this whole greenhouse, it creates this greenhouse effect. The plants transpire, they release water vapor, which hits the cold plastic, condenses, and falls back down as rain, essentially keeping the plants going and keeping the soil moist. It's just, nature is amazing.
It's
so
like
there are lots of fun things. Yeah. You
it's
can
like the
continue
movie.
to grow.
It's like the movie Biodome. It's 100% homeostasis. If you haven't seen Biodome, watch Biodome. Oh my god, it might be the dumbest movie you've ever seen.
I'm just super passionate about fall and winter gardening in general.
That's awesome.
Because
it's more laid back gardening, I think.
It's not just that it's laid back gardening. I think it is experiencing something that people think that that's not possible. Most people by October, they're like, we're done. In fact, if you come to New Jersey and you go visit the garden centers in New Jersey in September or in August, you won't find any seedlings. I promise you, you won't find any seedlings, because people are done gardening. And so, you have to push the limits, right, to see what's possible. And by having 1 or 2 days of really cold weather, that's okay. The plants, generally, if the roots survive, the plant's going to survive. And I know my cilantro might die, my spinach might die, my mustards might die, and my parsley might die, and the leafy foliage might die, but they'll be the first things to come back in March when the weather starts warming up. So, have hope.
Yeah, that's right in my part of Texas. The wintertime is like the only time I can really grow kale without it like going to seed. Like kale, broccoli. That's usually my wintertime stuff. And kale is pretty cold hardy. Kale, hardy. Brussels sprout. It's really good. I wanted to get to Vikram because I was going to ask. There's a lot of trees like apples and all the stone fruits and stuff like that require chill hours. They actually need the cold weather. But I think a common misconception is chill hours or freezing temperature. Like, what does chill hour mean?
So a chill hour is there's variable definitions, but essentially it's between 32 and about 46 degrees Fahrenheit, with a little bit of wiggle room on both of those ends, depending on species and where you are and stuff like that. And so for a lot of fruit trees to set buds in the spring, to flower and set fruit in the spring, you have to have a certain number of chilling hours based on variety and species, or they won't. It doesn't release those buds from dormancy. Essentially, like you have to chill them to do it. It's like stratifying, like cold stratifying a seed, right? It's a similar sort of thing where they have to go through this cold season before they'll set fruit. So a good example so Texas is a big state. There's a lot of, it's zone 10 down in the coastal bend up to about a 5B or 6 up in the top of the panhandle.
Wow.
So it's a big huge range. And down in the Texas Hill Country around Austin, they grow a lot of peaches down there. They have, down in the Fredericksburg, Austin area, they grow a lot of peaches. They're planting down there usually 250 to 300 hour chill hour peaches. So with 250 to 300 chill hours, that's enough to break that dormancy or whatever. But the catch there is after it hits that point, they're ready to go. So like those buds are reset and ready to break bud. So if you have a low chill peach in a cold area, like your first warm day in December or January, whatever, those peaches are like, rad, it's spring, I'm going to push buds. And then it gets frozen back.
That's what I was about to ask you. If there was a bad effect of growing something with low chill hours in too cold an environment.
Absolutely.
So, yeah, absolutely. So like where I am, I have a little peach orchard, and we have 750 to 1,000 chill hour peaches.
He says a little peach orchard.
Okay.
How big is your peach orchard?
Listen, I've cut down a lot of trees, but it's 5 acres.
It's not a little peach orchard.
It may be 500 trees. I don't know. It's
Oh my God.
Right now
call
it's
yourself
more
the peach crop.
I don't know that I'm very good at it because I'm trying to
Peach Daddy.
Peach Daddy. I'm gonna have to
Peach
start
Dad.
going to the gym if I want to call myself Peach Daddy.
Oh my God.
But like, I may not be very good at it because I'm trying to grow peaches in Lubbock, Texas. That's that. But we have 750 to 1,000 chill hour peaches.
Wow.
And so, like, because we don't want them breaking dormancy until late March, because we'll inevitably get a mid-April or late April freeze. The latest freeze I can remember here was on May 5th, a few years ago, 2016, and it was 25 degrees for 4 hours that night.
Oh wow!
On the the weekend before Mother's Day,
just enough to kill those buds, those new freshly.
Yeah, it was rough.
No peaches that year.
No. So, but what's interesting is 2017, I think, and we may have talked about this on an earlier episode. I don't remember now. They didn't get enough chill hours in the Hill Country, so none of the peaches down there actually set fruit. There was like no peaches anywhere, so they were sending refrigerated trucks up to buy peaches from us. I sent probably 7 tons of peaches down to the Fredericksburg, Austin area.
Crazy.
About 1.5 tons went to a big brewery down there. Some other people came up to buy them, like to sell at roadside stands because they didn't have any down there. So it's such a tough, like, variable crop.
Oh yeah. Well, then you gotta worry about pests and all that stuff. That's another podcast. But I'm glad to talk about the chill hours because I always heard the term chill hours. I didn't know that's gonna be a clip. We'll definitely have to have that one in there. So let's talk about 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now, a month from now. We're getting into spring, getting in warmer temperatures. 2 years ago, we had that big freeze. I had all kinds of recommendations of me and Jorge of what to plant. People are going to lose a ton of shrubs. They're going to lose a ton of tropicals. And I started recommending cold hardy varieties in my area. So let's kick it off to the plant man down here, Michael. In your area, after this freeze is over, what varieties are you going to be recommending to like people for a cold hardy shrub or ornamental or whatever?
We have a lot to choose from. So we saw a little bit of adjustment, but not a lot. So what I think people found, for example, sorry, I'm trying to figure out where I want to go with this.
Don't say drift roses.
We lost in the northern half of the state, at least, pretty much all of the waxleaf ligustrum, all of the Indian hawthorn, other types of privet as well, cast iron plants, azaleas, a lot of that stuff just got annihilated. Laura petalum. And there was some question as to, are people going to go back and plant those plants again? And a lot of people ended up doing it because I thought, are these people just going to completely want to switch the whole palette out or not? And we had customers that are like, I had these plants for 25 years without any issue, and they could take the drought and the heat and everything else, and they're familiar with it. And so a lot of people did end up going back with some of those plants that did get killed back in 21, and they're just kind of gambling that we're not going to have another extreme cold like that. Now, one thing that wasn't mentioned yet is the temperature dipping is one thing, but the more important part is the duration of those cold
Correct.
temperatures. So when we go down and get down 8 degrees or whatever, yeah, that's cold. But if it just dips to 8 and then goes back up to warm, you're not going to see a ton of plant damage. It's when it gets cold and stays cold for a long period of time that you get crazy amounts of damage. So that was the other issue with the 2021 freeze, is here in Wichita Falls, we were below freezing for something like 13 days where we didn't get above freezing. And we saw multiple days where it was below zero. So we hit negative 13, we hit negative 11, we hit negative 8. And then it was just that sustained cold. So eventually even the lower layers of soil are getting frozen when it just stays that cold for that long. And if you think about it, even with ourselves, it's more about cold exposure. So, you could go into a cryo chamber where it's extremely cold, and you can go in there for a few minutes and then you're like freezing, and then you get out and you're okay. But if you were to stay exposed to that really cold temperature for a long time, that's when you start getting tissue damage, which we call frostbite in humans. And that's when it gets really dangerous, is the amount of exposure. So on a cold snap like this that we're getting, probably not going to see damage on or at least not severe damage on those plants that I listed, like the Indian hawthorns and waxleaf ligustrums. You may get a little bit of burn back or spotting on the leaves or something like that, but not just like the total kill like we saw back in 21.
Yeah, I saw most. It must have been almost every Chick-fil-A in my area went, and they swapped everything with Turk's cap, Texas sage, and drift roses everywhere. Yeah. There must be 1 million pink drift roses that got sold because every subdivision just went to the pink drift rose. That's all I see.
Next you'll get Rosette virus, and it'll wipe out all of those.
Yeah, pretty much.
So Rosette's been running rampant for the last 5 or 6 years in the state of Texas and in other parts of the country as well. And drift roses are very susceptible to rosette disease, along with the knockout roses. So that'll probably be hitting the Houston area next.
Can I tell a story real quick? I was pruning some roses a couple years ago, and I cut my hand. I wasn't wearing gloves, and the wound would not heal over. It would never heal. It would scab and it would just keep going. And I thought I had the rose workers virus or whatever. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's a virus that there's a virus people used to get back in the day when they would work with roses a lot, and they would never heal. I forget what it's called. Somebody Google it in the chat. But it's not rose mosaic virus or something. I don't know. I'm a dum-dum, but I literally went to the doctor and I was like, hey man, I got scratched by a rose and it's been 6 months and it's not healed. And he's like, no, that's not it, bro. But wear gloves on your hand.
Was it honestly 6 months?
Crazy.
Let's say 3. Even 3 is
long time.
I can tell you a story of how roses drove a man crazy once, if we have time.
Tell me.
Okay, we had a customer
you pretty much have to.
It was crazy, and I hope he somehow listens to this because he should be ashamed of himself. But we landscaped his backyard. We planted some roses. He already had existing roses in his yard, and we planted a few more to go along with it. And then a year or two later, rosette hit our city pretty bad, and a lot of neighbors in his neighborhood ended up getting it, and it spreads through the air, so it can come from anywhere. But his roses got infected with rosette, and he ended up calling us and saying, hey, my roses have this. And he essentially blamed us thinking that the new roses we gave him infested all of his roses, and he wanted us to go pull them out and replace them with something else. And I said, our crew was busy or something. We couldn't go get them at that time. I was like, it'll be a couple weeks, or I can call someone to see if they can go dispose of those roses and get rid of them. Because I was like, they pretty much have to go to the landfill because you don't want to spread them around and put them somewhere else. And
you lose them?
Oh,
we might have.
Did I freeze up for you?
Yeah,
I'm
yeah,
back.
you're good.
So anyway, we couldn't get to him immediately, and he wasn't happy with that, and he decided he was going to go dig up the roses himself, and unbeknownst to me. And so he goes out there in his backyard. It was like 110 degrees, and he's digging up roses, and he gets cut all up fighting these roses, and it drove him mad because it was so hot, and he was so mad at us that he comes into the store. Like, he just got in his truck and drove straight over, bloody, sweaty, and he was like, I want to talk to the owner. And we're like, well, he's not here. And he was like, call him. And I was like, all right. And so because it wasn't me. And so we called him, and he takes the phone, and you just hear him just cussing the owner over in the corner of the store. Just, you guys gave us all this. And blah, blah, blah. And this guy was the nicest guy ever. When we were working at his house, he was like giving us all kinds of stuff. He was the nicest dude ever. But the roses, they made him crazy. And he went off, and then I didn't hear from him for like 3 years. And then one day he like just walked back into the store 3 years later, just this normal cheery self. And I'm sitting there thinking, like, I know your dark side when the roses drove you mad.
Hey, for the record, Vikram, it's sporotrichosis. Sporotrichosis.
Okay.
That is the virus. Sporotrichosis. So, give me one recommendation, Michael. One recommendation for a cold tolerant plant in your neighborhood, in your area. Your number one recommendation.
Yopons, dwarf yopons, Texas native. Did not see a lot of damage on those throughout the cold.
Gotcha. That's a good one. Miss Raish?
I'm going to go with good old kale.
Kale. Yeah, even the ornamental kale, right?
What's that?
Even like the ornamental kale, like in your flower gardens, is like that. Like in the beds.
Yeah, ornamental too, but more than ornament. See, what's going to happen is if the ornamental kale isn't protected as well, then it's going to end up looking really sad. And sometimes you want your garden and your plants to look good, right? Because that brings you happiness as well. So make sure you protect it. But for me, it is 100% edible kale because I do my green juice every morning. I have to head to my garden and get my kale. So definitely that is the super hardy plant, in my books. So that one plant to grow.
Is ornamental kale edible? I mean, can you eat it?
Well, I'm not sure. It's a good question. I think you could technically, but I don't know how it's going to taste.
Yeah.
I always tell people it's edible, but it doesn't taste good. So it's exactly like any other kale.
I wouldn't agree with you.
Get out of here. I'm with you.
Listen to me, you guys. If you're growing kale in Texas, it's going to taste different from the kale that I'm growing in New Jersey.
Yes,
because kale and all these cold hardy plants, what a lot of people don't know as well is that when the frost hits them, when the cold hits them, it actually converts the starches into sugars, and it makes them so much sweeter. So if you're going to have a kale in Texas in like 100 that's grown in like the warm weather versus kale that's grown in fall, or even carrots that are grown in fall, they're going to taste completely different. And so, if my number one is kale, my number two is carrots. Okay.
I always tell people, if you ever had bad kale, it was probably grown in the late spring or early summer.
In the wrong season. Yep.
That's what it is. Miss Rosanne, what are you recommending people to grow besides your? I mean, you got a bunch of flowers going right now, right?
Yeah, I feel like I would take this opportunity and this weather snap to talk about onions and garlic.
Yeah.
Like, we use onions and garlic all the time. So even though it's too late for garlic, not too late to plant some onions still. but teaching that
Amen.
point of they're going to make it through all of this. Even if you only
Yeah.
grow onions and garlic, just do it because you're going to eat it all year and you don't have to worry about it whenever snaps happen like this. And then a cut flower, I would say, is Rudbeckia. Like any variety of Rudbeckia, like will withstand anything. That's all over my garden.
How do you spell that?
Rudbeckie. Black-eyed Susan. There's all kinds of
Okay.
varieties of it, and it's just so cold hardy. Beautiful
Yeah,
flower.
I was telling people because I grew Gala from a bulb. I'll think of it later on. I was growing some bulb gladiolas, but I didn't plant my bulbs like in the fall. I planted them in the spring, so it took a long time. Stuff like tulips, even like blue bonnets. Like you wanted to plant your blue bonnets if you're going to plant them like later fall because they need the stratification before they can grow. And I've done experiments, and it definitely needs the stratification. You can also manipulate that by putting them in the freezer as well, and then planting them. So, but yeah, no, that's awesome. And Mr. Phil, I already know what plant you're going to say. Everybody should plant that's cold tolerant.
Get a solo cup, go to a windowsill, and put a fig cutting in it.
I got my first 2 fig trees this year, by the way. I'm so excited.
I'm bringing you more. I'm bringing you more, Rosanne.
I got Fig Nominal and Ruby something. I can't remember.
Little Red Ruby.
Yes.
Yeah. So me and Phil don't buy Fig Nominal or whatever because they're trademarked and we're not allowed to propagate.
Okay. Well, I did buy it.
You can propagate them, just don't sell them.
Or you change the name. I'm just kidding.
But Rosanne, welcome to the tip of the iceberg for figs.
Thank you. I'm excited.
I'm bringing you some cuttings. I'll see Rosanne tomorrow, and I'll bring you some potted figs tomorrow.
Awesome, thank you.
Yeah, it really is a really fun winter project to propagate fig cuttings if you're inside and you don't like. And I have I have kale, I have carrots going in my garden outside too. So those already been mentioned, but fig cuttings for sure.
Are you going to go out there and hardcore prune before the cold hits?
Yes. And I'm going to actually wrap some of the tips of the tree itself. Normally I don't have to worry about it, but I had dieback because I pruned hard. And then where it was exposed on those cuts I made, I didn't cover with parafilm.
Oh, so after you prune, you put parafilm on there?
Sometimes. Normally I don't have to worry about it, but when it got down to the teens, a few trees took a really bad hit.
Yeah, because all mine are in containers, when we hit 15 or whatever, my stuff's going to die back to the ground. So before, if you got a fig or something that's in a container or whatever, and you're going to hit like 20, 15 degrees, go out there and get some cuttings before it freezes. You can keep them in the fridge in a Ziploc bag with like a wet paper towel for a couple days, up to like a week.
There are a few hardy varieties of figs, and they're commonly known as Mount Etna type fig because they grew on the mountainside of Mount Etna in Sicily. But there are a few other hardy varieties out there like Ronde Bordeaux as well that not only can they handle those hard freezes back to single digits even, but if they do die to the ground, they come back with vengeance, and they also fruit earlier than other varieties. So you can be sure that if you have a cold hardy variety, if it does die back, you will still get figs the next year.
Yeah, my Chicago hardy was the only one that didn't die back all the way to the ground, and then I did get figs pretty early. So
awesome.
That's cool.
Mr. Vikram, what recommendations you got, buddy?
Beside the weeping and gnashing of teeth when it gets this cold, I'm gonna put in a plug for the humble viola and pansy, which are incredibly tough little plants. Incredibly tough.
Edible too, right?
They are. Yeah. Violas make great. The flowers are high in anthocyanins. They actually have a lot of antioxidants in them. People use them in salads as garnishes. I've seen people candy them and do all kinds of stuff with them. You can do a lot with them. But people, I think, don't realize how tough these little plants are in terms of the cold. We had some in a pot. Like a terracotta pot, so definitely is going to cool down quickly. It's definitely going to have some problems. And we left it out last winter when it was like a -3. Got some snow on it, got ice on it. It was cold over and over. Totally fine. Totally
Really?
fine. You could see some like burning on the leaves, but first time it warmed back up just a little bit, they flowered again. They were great.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got four viola hanging baskets, and that's crazy that they're that cold hardy because they're kind of like a tender little plant. Like there's not a whole lot of like structure there. I mean, it's kind of crazy.
But they're tough.
They are
Yeah,
tough.
what
The
do they
name
taste
is
like? Like
deceiving.
nasturtiums or something?
Pansy.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I'm sure. Yeah, go ahead, Vikram.
Oh, I was gonna say. I mean, they taste. I don't know how
Like
to describe
grass.
it other than like floral. They taste like plant,
Yeah.
right? Oh,
You know, the flowers
They're
to
not
me,
great.
the viola flowers, I feel like they just taste very neutral. They don't have
Yeah.
any flavor.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Literally, but they just add that pizzazz to any, dish that you're serving. And
They're
I
pretty.
know we even put them in like an ice cube tray with like some water and you pop it in the freezer. And then you have these gorgeous little, floral cubes that you can pop in a drink and looks just super cool.
That's so
Right?
bougie, Ray. It's just
Very
so
fancy.
bougie.
Yeah.
Too cool. You gotta try it, okay?
Well, somebody's making a video on that tomorrow. No, that's awesome. That's cool. I'll go try them. I made a video making those hanging baskets, and then I put in the description. I was like, yeah, all violas and pansies are edible. Come to find out, not all violas and all pansies are edible. So I did have to change that in my video. I guess there's some different varieties, but yeah. So I'll always look into that before you start eating stuff. I've made that mistake. That video I made of me putting tomato seeds in my mouth. I think I talked about this last week. I made sure I contacted a doctor, Dr. Vikram Baliga, and I said, "Hey man, I got an idea for a video. Is it okay for me to just open a package of seeds and just dump them in my mouth?" I was like, I was thinking, is there like something that makes them not like stick together or like a powder? Because there is like kind of like a powdery substance in there. I was like, is that gonna? My mouth did taste really weird after that.
I bet.
It was probably like potato starch or something like that. I didn't know about like potato starch just like that on cheese and stuff. I watched a
Like
video and they
cellulose?
said, yeah, I didn't know they did that. Yeah, they were making nachos and they said don't use the pre-shredded cheese because when it melts, it doesn't all because of the potato starch or the coagulant or whatever. Yeah, I thought that was interesting. But I was like,
Yeah.
the seeds had that in there, and I tasted something.
I hope that's what everyone takes home from this episode. Don't make coagulated nachos.
Yeah. Yeah. Dude, it's a miracle that I'm alive with all the stuff I've eaten. It's like I ate elderberries not knowing that like, hey, you're not supposed to like eat the elderberries or like, yeah, it's I don't know. I should have died many times. My recommendation for a cold tolerant variety here in the Houston area, like I said, you can't go wrong with going natives. The Texas sages, pineapple guava is probably my favorite. People
Oh,
down
yeah.
under, they know
Good one.
about the pineapple guava, the Feijoa. How do you say it, Michael? Is it Feijoa Sinaloa or something like that?
I don't know how to pronounce it the right way. I love
You're
pineapple
supposed
guava.
to
That's
know.
one of my.
Yeah, but
That's the tastiest flower on earth, in my opinion.
yes, pineapple guava makes this beautiful. It's like a marshmallow. It makes like this little white flower and has these little red stickers coming up, and the hummingbirds go nuts for them. I've actually never gotten a fruit.
I eat all the flowers before they make fruits. I was on the A&M campus and one day and I saw a huge bush of it and it was in full bloom and I stopped and I was just like eating just pounds and pounds of flowers and people were walking past me like, what the heck is that guy doing? And I was like, they're edible flowers. And they were like, whatever, dude.
They're like, he's on something edible,
Apple
eating all these
guava.
flowers.
People crazy.
Oh yeah, dude. No, pineapple guavas are awesome. They're very cold tolerant. You can
They're
trim.
great.
You can replace like your normal shrubs with them. Like if you're looking to swap out all your ornamental stuff with stuff that actually makes edible things, Feijoa pineapple guava is a good option, and the blooms are really cool.
Cool.
Guys, I've taken up an hour of your time. I really appreciate you coming on. Real quick, let's start over here with I don't know what order it is on Facebook. Over here, Mr. Michael Fiore. tell everybody what you got coming up and where everybody can find you.
Find us on, we release a new educational video every day on social media. So TikTok, Instagram, Facebook.
Shout out to Felicia.
Yes. And so, yeah, definitely check those out if you want to learn more about plants. I talk a lot about everything. So houseplants, gardening, ornamentals. I talk about crazy stuff like farming. So who knows what we'll be talking about next.
Yep. And if you're in the Wichita Falls area, go by Smith's Garden Town. Me, Vikram, and Michael might be doing a little bit of an adventure possibly in May. I think we might try to organize something where we go up there. And Rosanne, if you want, you can come too. I'll pick you up on the way.
Sounds fun.
And we'll do something. We'll do like a live in person podcast and get people.
Oh yeah, that'd be cool.
Maybe we can do like maybe we can do a fundraiser and get Phil in.
Yeah.
Fly the whole family down. I don't know if my...
It's a delay. All right. Well, thanks much, Michael, for coming on. You always bring your level of expertise to the podcast.
And I gotta run.
Let's know. Oh, good.
So,
go ahead, Michael. Thanks, man.
My wife's yelling at me. We got company over, so she's like, "Stop."
Tell you, Pack. Oh man, we'll go. I'm sorry.
You gotta tell your business.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, man. Well, Miss Resh, the vegetable gardening made easy. Tell us about your book. Tell us where we can find you and what you got coming up.
Thank you so much. So you can find me on Instagram at Resh Gala, and you can also see me on my website, www.reshgala.com.
Oh no!
We lost her right at the end.
Oh no!
This has not been our day.
Dude,
for technology.
Dude, so it's always an adventure when we're live streaming. We'll let her finish in a minute. Rosanne, you don't have a book, but I am going to see you at the Antique Rose Emporium this weekend in Breno, Texas, which it doesn't make any sense to advertise because it's sold out, so no one else can come that doesn't already have tickets, which is a bummer.
Pretty cool, though. Pretty cool that it's sold out.
But if you're in the Brenham area and you want to buy me a margarita tomorrow, I can't decide. There's only a couple restaurants in Brenham. Well, there's a couple, but I either want to go to the Mexican food restaurant or there's a beer garden. So if someone is in Brenham and wants to buy me and Rosanne a beer or a margarita, shoot a DM to me and we'll meet you there for dinner. Miss Resh, I'll let you finish your exit, but let me know where we can find. And I paid money for this book. I did not get this for free. I paid my own money. That's how good it is. And the way I know if it's a good book is if it's got good pictures. It's got good pictures.
Okay, perfect. I'm so sorry.
You're good.
My phone died.
Oh, no.
Life of a content creator. I'm sorry. I'm truly sorry.
Tell everybody where they can find you and what you got coming up.
Okay, so you can find me on my social media on Instagram at Resh Gala, which is RESHGALA. And I have a book that I just recently wrote and published. It's called Vegetable Gardening Made Easy. And that just came out. So if you need any tips and techniques, then please go check out my book.
Absolutely. You can pick it up on Amazon or your website. I'm going to need to get this autographed as well.
Absolutely.
I'm about to ship it up to you. We're going to go to our other author in the group, Mr. Vikram Baliga. Dr. Vikram Baliga. What you got coming on? What you got coming up, and where can people find you?
I'm just starting the semester, so I'm probably going to be sleepy for the next 3 months, but I am still doing the social media in the meantime. It's always a little scary when my students find me. They're like, I saw your video. I'm like, I'm so sorry. But you can find me pretty much everywhere as the Plant Prof. My podcast, Planthropology, is just about to come back. I've been on a long hiatus, but I'm starting back, I think, next week. And I've got some really cool guests lined up for the spring, so I'm pretty excited about that. And then
I haven't gotten invited. I don't know.
I'm working through my list. I promise.
Well,
I think all of you are on my list.
Sounds like I'm on the bottom. Sounds like I'm on the bottom.
Not like all the way. Not like all the way on the bottom.
We gotta do the smart people first, and then we'll get Destin on.
What else? What else do I do? I don't know. I've got another
Your next
podcast
book.
called In the Grow. I'm working on potentially another book this year, so we'll see.
Oh, this year.
Amazing.
Well,
Thank you.
And I guess last but not least, let's go to Mr. Big Daddy Phil. What do you got, man? What you got, brother?
What I got going on? Just propagating. As it should everyone else. I still have fig cuttings for sale over at philsfigs.com. Check it out. You can access the store on Instagram at philsfigs. And I am also doing a series of fig growth tips and advice on YouTube called Phil's Fig Fridays. So tune in, check it out. I cover a topic every week, and I just do a quick check-in with my nursery and how it's going and growing.
Dude, I love your YouTube videos, man. Your YouTube videos are really, really easy. You have a really great. You and Vikram both have like the best voice for podcasting and videos because you sound smart. And so like your tips and your step-by-step like directions and how to propagate, how to prune. I will be using the rule of 3 from now on. I got that from you. I will be using the rule of 3 when it comes to pruning from now on. Make sure you check out philsfigs.com to get your figs from him.
Mm-hmm.
You still have quite a few left. I saw your fridge is mostly figs. There's no beer, milk, eggs, mostly fig cuttings.
Nope. Yeah, I've been saying thank you to my wife a lot for filling up our fridge instead of Costco kids food with fig cuttings. So,
Gotcha. Well, hey, I think you just need, instead of a beer fridge in your garage, you need a fig fridge.
I do. I absolutely do.
Oh my goodness. Well, I appreciate you coming on as always, dude. You're my co-host.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
You're my right hand man. My what do they call it in The Godfather? My what is it called? Like the right hand guy. I know this word.
I'm picturing him too, but
well, me and Jorge are my compañero. That's my business partner, my man, my dude.
Yeah, that's what it is.
I like that. Yeah, but I really appreciate it. If anyone's got to go. I got one more question. It's asking about dragon fruits.
I'm going to have to jump off, but it was really good hanging out with you.
I'm going to have to go too.
Go ahead, Rach.
Thank you.
Yep.
Thanks,
guys. Great seeing everybody. That was awesome.
Absolutely. Yeah, appreciate it, guys. I will talk to y'all later on.
Bye.